Just a basic question. You know, how do you decipher what you want to read? I mean, I'm not sure if you read anymore, but as you were...
I'm an avid reader.
Yeah. So do you... And I think yesterday I asked you about the Chinese guy, Lin T or Lin Chi. You know, you said he was a good one to maybe take some of his thoughts, or is there other...
Who did I say?
Lin Chi.
Oh, Lin Chi, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's a middle-aged Zen cat, and he's really worth reading.
What's some of his best that you like that resonate for you?
I don't know if there's a name to any of his writings. It's more like collected talks.
Okay.
Kind of like this, but better. So.
Well, I was just trying to put something out there, you know.
So yeah, you can find it online. It's free. You don't have to buy the book. Just Google it, and there'll be lots.
Yep.
And I think those guys pretty much had it. You know, this is 9th, 10th century. What I like about them is that they didn't have any gods. So they could just be clear about what it was to be a human, have a human life. They didn't even worship the Buddha. This is a bit vulgar, so this will help you not idealize me. I think this comes out of Lin Chi, or if not, one of his compatriots was asked, "What is the Buddha?" And his reply is, "The shit stick in the latrine." They didn't have toilet paper, so they used to stick. So the Buddha, he said, is the shit stick in the latrine. What did he mean by that? What? Any thoughts?
He's just cleaning up the dirty mess. The thoughts that he has is just cleaning up the dirty mess of your mind.
Maybe. Any thoughts on that? What I take it to mean is it's a nasty question, because you're trying to make something concrete. You're trying to reify something so that then you can worship it. And they're saying, and the aphorism is saying, "Are you really want to worship a shit stick?" See, they're telling you, don't make a god out of the Buddha. It's not worth worshiping anything or anybody. Just be yourself. And they would say things like that. Just another one from that era is, when you're thirsty, take a drink. When you're tired, lie down. That'd be one of those. Or another one that I like from that era is, lie down, stand up, or walk around. But whatever you do, don't wobble. It's beautiful. Don't have a wobbling mind, just steady state. Walk on, be here. So we don't always need to have this debate with ourselves, is what this is saying. We don't need to be in this dialogue. You see, we all have this in our minds. There'll be like a conversation going on almost. Two parties to the conversation often. You wouldn't raise your hands before, my two new ladies. Would you raise your hand on that? Does it sometimes feel like a two-party conversation going on in your mind?
Yes. I don't know about two parties, but definitely two
back and forth.
Yes, absolutely.
And well, what I learned from my friend Robert K. Hall, MD, who was a psychiatrist and also an acclaimed Buddhist teacher, we used to have conversations about this. And what he said is, and often those conversations are between a top dog and an underdog. And the way that conversation appears is the underdog says, I'm unhappy, I need something. And the top dog says, you're always trying to get the next thing. Why can't you just meditate or whatever it is? And the underdog says, I'm really trying. I'm trying as hard as I can. And the top dog says, you're not trying hard enough. That's why you're failing. And this conversation can go on endlessly because it's all one. It's all inside. That really would be non-duality if we could stop that and just be oneness and not have to split it into a top dog and an underdog. And that top dog will be an authority figure. It might have come from a harsh father or some church elder or whatever, but it will be the one with the righteous information, as if it really knows what's moral and what's immoral. But nobody really knows that. There's a question involved. If we really want to be ethical or moral, you can't just follow a rule. You have to puzzle these situations out and go into your depths. And I mean, is it moral to fly in an airplane when it burns a lot of fuel? That's a topic. It's out there now. But I would never discourage people from flying here to be here. I think it's worth it. But maybe if I don't get to fly anywhere, but I just have to breathe the pollution from the airplane, I might not feel that sanguine about it. So that's morality, that's ethics. Where not that some authority tells you what to do, what's right and what's wrong. Never have sex with a foreigner. Only, if you're a Jew, only Jews. Otherwise, see, this, a lot of people follow this, and they think that that's moral or ethical. They were taught that, and if they stray, if they see some attractive Italiano or whoever it is, these guys are hot. A lot of them really are. I mean, I'm not into men, but I see these guys they know how to shake that booty. So what if one of these Jewish women goes to Italy? She says she's going for the culture and everything, but once she gets there, it's not that simple. Well, it's a deep question. And there she's confronted. The authority figure is telling her, no, no. But the problem with authority figures is the more they tell you no, the more you want to do it. At least if you're anything like me, being told, if you tell me don't talk that way, wow, you're in for a stream of consciousness for sure. But I would not sleep with an Italian man. Even if you tell me it's bad.
Then you are awake.
No. Those guys put too much hair oil in it.
We have a question of the live stream, Robert. So, Antara says, Robert, you spoke of voices. Can you speak about subtle experiences that some would consider spiritual and that come perhaps with deep meditation or knowings that seem to come from other dimensions, or feeling that arise as energy? I have had some of these and wonder how this fit within your own view and experiences.
Okay, that's an excellent question.
Thank you.
It's so easy to say other dimensions. It's just two words, other dimensions. What does it mean? I have no idea what that means. Other dimensions. In other words, we're all here, but there's this other place. We're not there, but someone is, or something is. Well, mathematically, that really is true. They're finding that, the mathematicians are finding that there's maybe 10 or 11 dimensions that are implied by string theory. Or in the other worlds theory, at every decision point, so to speak, there's a split. So if Antara asks me a question and I start replying, that's one world, but another world is created by the split off Robert who just sits here silently. And then that's in another dimension, and that also exists. And since it branches out, and then now there's these two dimensions split into two others, this universe is impossibly cluttered with worlds, according to this theory. So Antara is speaking about these things as if they actually exist. But I don't know if they exist. So when I have a thought or a feeling, Antara, I'm not imagining that it came from some other dimension. It's just a thought in my mind. The mind is always thinking. Words are constantly arising, whether we want them to or not. In fact, it's almost impossible to stop them. So why imagine that they have to come from some other dimension? We're in this dimension and they're coming. Now, as far as the energy word that you used, Antara, this is energy. We're alive. That's the aliveness is actually energy. What happens is you eat food and there was energy in the food because the sun shone down on the earth, fell upon leaves. The leaves produce chlorophyll, and that chlorophyll was eaten by animals that can digest chlorophyll. And their bodies were eaten by animals that cannot digest chlorophyll. And we're one of them. And so when you have your bacon and eggs, hold the bacon. That's my breakfast order, hold the bacon. People love it, and I can't really grok it. But that's another story. I like pigs, and I know how bright they are, so I don't want to eat them. They're considerably brighter than a dog. I don't want to eat a donkey either for the same reason. I know how smart they are. I know their inner life. Well, so when you say, is this energy? Yes, this entire life is energy. I had the eggs for breakfast, and the microbes in my body, which are living beings, digest the eggs, breaks it down into its waste products, which are strands of DNA. Those pass through the walls of the small intestine into the bloodstream and are eaten by the cells as nutrition. So the sun energy is what we're going on here. Our aliveness comes from the sun. The sun is our source of life on Earth. So I don't know why you want to imagine that there's energy coming from some conscious realm or some other place that makes us have thoughts and feelings. I'm not saying you're wrong, Antara, but it's a bit too airy-fairy for my taste. It's imaginary because I've never been in another dimension, so far as I know, unless maybe you call the dream world another dimension, but I don't. I call the dreams just part of this one. They're just what the brain does when the outside stimulants are cut off. You're in a dark room with your eyes closed, there's no outside sounds, and you're asleep, so you're not really aware of your body, but your brain doesn't rest. It's working. It may rest in periods of really deep sleep, but most of the time your eyes are going like this, called REM, rapid eye movement, and all these images are arising. And boy, I had a doozy of the dream, not last night, but the night before. It was amazing. It was an amazing, detailed dream. And it involved a religious celebration, it involved donkeys, it involved my having to walk barefoot. And one of my photographs, they were auctioning off to help support the church, and it was going for $8,700. Right, that's they had blown it up to big size. It was on the wall, and when I walked up to it, it was impossibly detailed. It was much more detailed. If you haven't seen my photographs, they're usually very detailed. You can go in and in and in and further and not lose the plot. But these were beyond that. These were so incredibly detailed that I was amazed. And then I woke up. I couldn't find my shoes. I wanted to walk home with the donkey, but it was rough trail and I couldn't find my shoes, and then I woke up. So did that come from another dimension? I don't think so, because actually I had been speaking about religion, and I do have a donkey in my life, and I am a photographer after all. So it's more likely that this is just a reshuffling of everyday experience. That you and I were talking about psychosis. People fear psychosis and they discard their psychotic thoughts. We all have them, but we discard them and filter them out because we can't tolerate that. But dreams are psychotic in that way. They don't make sense necessarily. We don't know what they mean, and they may combine elements that don't really seem to go together, and yet somehow they go together in the dream. We're okay being psychotic when we're dreaming. It's just we don't want to be psychotic in public and have people lock us up or something. That's the problem with it. Otherwise, it might be a lot of fun. I mean, who knows? Only the shadow knows. Well, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm kind of riffing now because I know we have nothing serious to discuss. Oh boy!
Yeah, so how would you define intelligence, and how can you know that a pig is more intelligent than a dog?
Well, sometimes it's clear cut. I mean,
how can it be clear cut?
Well, I'm no Einstein. I'm not writing a theory that's going to dominate the entire 21st century. But someone is, but it ain't Robert. So I have my level of intelligence. From what I understand, it's on the north side of average, which is, I'm happy about that. But just like a great athlete is born and is happy to have big muscles or something. It didn't ask for it. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But if you mean intelligence in the sense of IQ,
that's what I'm asking you. What do you mean when you say
that actually can be defined as the ability to solve problems. That ability is one form of intelligence. You're given a pile of blocks, and you're given 5 pictures of that pile of blocks rotated in a different direction, and you're asked to decide which one of, that's how you take an IQ test. You're asked to decide which one of these actually represents the original one rotated. Well, there are a lot of people who can't do that. So this IQ test says this is the ability to visualize without having the thing in front of you is one form of intelligence. IQ tests also have vocabulary tests on them. It's said that having a larger vocabulary is a sign of intelligence, for example. But there's other kinds of intelligence. There's emotional intelligence. And someone might be able to ace the IQ test and be very stupid when it comes to hearing what another person really feels. They might not get it at all, right?
Yeah.
The nearsighted professor type who just, is an egghead. He doesn't really get passion. So, but intelligence, it's very clear what intelligence is. It just can't be defined, but we know it when we see it. It's like pornography. You can't define it, but you know it when you see it. You know intelligence when you see it, no?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just give an example. Sitting here in this room, I can see the intelligence that went into constructing it. Someone had to make a drawing with all of these measurements without seeing the house in front of her or him. Just sat there now they have CAD, computer-assisted design, but let's go back to before CAD. Someone had to sit, because I like the image, someone had to sit there at a drawing table with rulers and protractors and various pencils and conceive of this space in her mind or his mind and draw that onto the paper. I think if you saw that drawing, you would say there's intelligence on this page. It's obvious, yes? Okay. Then the draftsman gives the drawing to the architect, and the architect goes out to the job site and gets the boss of the construction crew and shows him the drawing and says, this is the drawing, but what I really want you to do over here is put in some extra concrete because it has to be a little stronger than it really shows on the diagram, and so that will be an intelligent conversation. And anyone hearing that would understand these people are intelligent and they're now communicating. And then when the builder gets out there, he has a different kind of intelligence. He knows how to work with materials, or she, and understands, I have to use this kind of nail here on these boards, and I have to hammer it in a certain angle because that's what makes it really stick. And that person was not instructed by the architect or the draftsman to use those nails and hammer them in a certain way. So the builder is bringing that intelligence into the project. And anybody watching that person hammering the nails at a certain angle would see that it was intentional and that there was an intelligence behind it. And you could go on with this form of analysis. It's clear to me that you are listening intelligently to what I'm saying. And I would know that immediately, because if you were now staring at me blankly, I would say, no sense speaking with this woman. She doesn't have the brain power to grok anything on this level. It's too symbolical. What I need to do is take her to a construction site and let her look at the drawing and show her the guy hammering the nails, and maybe she'll say, aha, I get it. But just in words, she can't get it. And so one of the things that teachers have to do is understand to whom they are pitching their teaching, which is an assessment of the intelligence of the students. And a really good teacher will understand that not everyone in the room is at the same level of understanding, and so say the same thing in many different ways, so that it will appeal to one mind and maybe not to one, but maybe from the next angle, the person who couldn't get it the first time will get it. And maybe the person who got it from the other angle won't get it from this angle. And that's what I have tried to do in both of my books. It's what I call circumambulation. You have this one idea, but you go all around it with different examples and from different points of view, with the feeling that if this one doesn't grab them, the next one might. And the feedback that I've gotten from readers is that that method works really well, because I've had people tell me that directly. Gee, I didn't really understand this chapter, but when you said it that way, wow, I suddenly snapped, I got it. And I think that's been happening here for the last few days. One of the things I noticed about dinner last night is how joyous it was. And I said to Catania, I said, you know, everyone's having a really good time. And she said, it must have been a good meeting. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an idea. I mean, it has legs. Maybe if this meeting is a good meeting, we'll all go to dinner now and it'll be fun. We'll have something to talk about. And yes.
The question is from Antara from the live stream, which questioned before. So she says, forget other dimensions. I'm really referring to my own internal energy and knowings that seem to be beyond the ordinary. Others speak of these as spiritual. So where do these experiences fit in your view?
When the people speak about other spirits, where does that fit into my view?
No. Antara seems to have like this energy, the experience of energy and knowings that are beyond the ordinary.
That she has experiences of knowings, yes,
and feelings and energy feelings of that seem to be beyond the ordinary.
Beyond the ordinary.
So can you speak about the ordinary and unordinary, maybe?
Yeah, it's all extraordinary. How could you possibly call this ordinary, Antara? I mean, the fact, I'm serious. I'm having fun because Antara and I have been communicating a bit privately, and she's nice. But the very fact of being here at all in this universe, and you look up and there's planets and galaxies, and there's fish swimming around in the stream, and there's birds singing, and all of it, babies being born. I'm just confessing, it blows my mind wide open. I mean, I don't think there's anything ordinary about this. Ordinary would be more like you're on the moon and nothing ever changes, and you're just staring at rocks. I think we're doing better than that. And I really encourage everyone to be extraordinary and just live up to it. Realize that you've been given a very large gift, not by God necessarily, although if you believe that and it works, that's fine by me. But you have been given a gift, which is this human awareness. Wherever it's coming from, we don't know. I'm not expecting anyone to tell me where it's coming from and that I will believe it. That would take an awful lot of convincing. There'd have to be some serious evidence. And that's kind of where that cult energy comes from. You get an authoritarian, even if it's a nice authoritarian, he's speaking as if he knows and you don't know. But you can learn it from him. If you just keep going long enough and you try hard enough, you may catch it. Well, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that I don't know any more than you do. We both know what we know, and they can't really be compared. The knowing of a young mother, what she feels, I don't have that feeling, and she can't explain it to me. She can talk about it, and I can get a feeling for it, and I can watch her with her child and get a feeling for it, but the bonding that's taking place every time their eyes meet, I've never done that with a child. I've done what a father does, but it's not the same. And I know it isn't the same because I've watched the women doing it. And it amazes me. It's not ordinary. It's super, super ordinary, that. This is really an extraordinary world. We cannot really communicate that to one another sufficiently. We have to discover it within ourselves. And it's not coming from outside, and it's not non-duality either. It's experience. It doesn't have to be defined. Experience just is. It's undeniable. Experience is undeniable, and it's fresh. It keeps arising. It's like a volcano and the lava never stops. It just keeps arising. Or it's like sitting on the beach watching the ocean, and a wave comes and breaks on the shore, and then there's another one right behind it, and doesn't look the same. It's not the same. There's never two totally alike. The next one comes in and breaks on the beach, and you can just sit there, I have done, and watch it. One after another, endlessly. That's what I call the mind. It's endless. It's not that Robert's mind is endless, so you have to learn to make yours endless, which is what the spiritual teachers are usually explaining to you. Yours could be endless too, but not yet. You need higher awareness, and then you can be endless. Sitting there on the beach watching the waves could seem to be ordinary, because after all, the beach is there and you could go out any day and do it, so that's ordinary, in a sense. But if you sit there really watching them, it's not ordinary at all, it's extraordinary. So that's my answer to that, Antara. If you feel that your experience is extraordinary, beautiful, I agree with you. I totally agree. And I have feelings of extraordinary feelings sometimes myself. I will feel something in my heart. I'll just feel it. I can't describe it. It's indescribable, but it will be a feeling. It might be a feeling of great openness, or it might be a feeling of sadness, great sadness. And I'll start to cry. And the tears won't really be coming from my eyes, they'll be coming from this feeling I have in the middle of my chest. Just evoking it is making me a bit emotional, because I've had that experience so many times, where you don't know where that's coming from. 1 minute you were thinking about something else. Let's say you were having a cool sex fantasy. And then the next, I have a lot of them, and then in the next moment, that disappears and you just feel this feeling around your heart and you start to cry. If that's what you're talking about, Antara, I hope so. If it's something else that you imagine is coming from some other non-ordinary place, because without that we're just ordinary, then that's what I call splitting. That's splitting, where you take something that's really one experience and you break it into the experiencer and the outside source of the experience. And then there's no non-duality in that. If there's going to be any non-duality, we have to start at home, where we actually might be able to do some work. And that is to see every time you split something in half, that really isn't anything split. It's just one experience. It's just a flow, and nobody's making it. And that's awake. If you just understand, wow, look at all this stuff here and these people, and we're going to dinner and everything, and wow, that's, if you're really bored, then you'll say, gee, have to go out to dinner with people again. You won't be Robert when you do that. So on that sense, we'll be entirely dualistic. Yes. What did she say?
I have a question of Paul Cannell. So he says, "Hi Robert, hi everyone. I've been listening to your old recording of Being Emptiness, and you were talking about the quote of Walter Capel and Louis Marches, quote of, 'Discovery is unrepeatable. Being here, all we see creates this presence in a living stream of energy.'"
Oh, okay. Try to read it again louder, or I'll come and sit over there.
Being here, all we see creates this presence in a living stream of energy.
Yes.
You talked about how it is to be touched now,
Yes.
or never.
Yes.
Walking through the forest here in Queensland, I had some understanding of what Walter and Louis were saying. You also talked about how these objects in mind or awareness cannot be touched.
Mm-hmm.
My first question is, what is it that can be touched?
Mm-hmm.
And in what sense can or cannot be touched now or never? As you say, it has to be touched now or never. My second question is about your final chapter on the myth of Sisyphus. You have repeatedly posed the question throughout your book, Don't. What do you want to do now?
Yes.
Could you say a little bit something on that as well? Much love to all.
Yes, I could reply to all of this, but I've realized that we've gone on too long and we're into our dinner reservation. And this is going to be a long answer, most likely. So let's live stream tomorrow at the same time, and I'll get to it at that point. Okay, thank you all so much.